So I think this professional practice workshop, it's an important thing for architects to understand. We tend to focus on the design side, but we have to also understand the business of architecture. And it's a tool for us to survive in the practice and in the profession. So we set up this workshop initially because of Arcasia and ASA felt it was important, and we wanted to do it as an international forum. So I would like to introduce our speakers for today. And the first speaker, a very knowledgeable person, Mr. Theodore Chan. Theodore, if you could just stand up, please. And Theodore is currently the Vice President of Arcasia for Zone B, which includes Thailand and 6 other countries around Southeast Asia. And he is the past president of Singapore Institute of Architects. Theodore is very knowledgeable in the professional practice, and he has been speaking all around Asia and elsewhere with regards to the professional practice for architects. And very knowledgeable person. So if you have any questions you want to ask Theodore, please feel free to do so. Theodore is going to be speaking about from the perspective of the Singapore experience, just to share his thoughts about what's happening in Singapore and the profession there, and then you can kind of compare it to what we're doing here in Thailand and see if there are any synergies between the two. And then we have, this is a morning session, and then we have the afternoon session, and we have 2 very knowledgeable speakers for the afternoon session. The first person is Dr. Porn Virunrat. Dr. Porn conducts training program for architects, and he does also a software program to manage the Office of Architecture. And our second speaker for the afternoon is Kun Anucha Tangsiri Viya Kun. Kun Anucha. Kun Anucha also very knowledgeable in the field of architecture office management. And he does also a seminar for ASA and ISA with the professional practice program. And his discussion in the afternoon is going to be on architecture business management, which is very important as well. So without further ado, I would like to have Mr. Theodore Chan to speak about the Singapore perspective. Theodore, thanks.
It's not happening. All right, thanks, Kudwi. And good morning to everybody, all the young architects and the not so young architects. I'm one of the not so young architects. Now, today is a workshop, right? It's a workshop. So workshops are usually very informal. Okay, I'm not delivering a sermon or a lecture. So I'd like you all to just relax and try to, it's a sharing session. What I want to do, I'll probably take about half an hour to 45 minutes, really is to share my experience in Singapore. After practicing for about 29 years, I have about 29 years of practicing experience in Singapore. And I'm sure that because architectural practices all over the world, they are quite similar. There are a lot of things we can learn from you all, and a lot of things you can learn from us, and even take it to a next step, right? So that's more or less the gist of the whole talk this morning. Okay, so my experience in Singapore, I will talk about that. I will talk about also, because if you want to be a startup, you must understand the industry and the practice landscape, right? How to pitch yourself in, what kind of level of architect you want to be, how do you want to come in? So it's important to understand that. And this also happens in Singapore. And then the various modes of practice in Singapore, whether you want to do it as a sole proprietor, a company, or you want to do it as a partnership, all right? And do you want to be a specialist or a generalist? No, to be truthful to yourself, to look at your forte and your skills and really what are you good at? Because unless you know what you're good at, then you can capitalize on it and improve. And then I also want to share with you the master's schedule of practice scope in Singapore, because and to see in comparison with what happens in Thailand. I will talk about business costs, a simple fee proposal, what to consider when you put in a fee proposal, and also pacing out your projects, meaning make sure that your projects are paced out in a healthy manner, not all projects happening at the same stage at the same time, because that is the worst thing that can happen. You know, you will be stretching your resources, and sometimes it can even lead to serious failure. Then, what, in my opinion, are elements of a successful practice? The system, standards, and manpower, because these are the key things that actually make a practice. You may differ with me. I'd like to hear your ideas as well, then maybe we can discuss and we can help improve ourselves, right? We talk a bit about marketing, branding, and promotion, and then how to expand. And finally, when you reach about our age, we talk about how to hand it over to somebody, right? Succession planning. In fact, that's the first thing you do. When you start a practice, the first thing you do is, how am I going to send it out to the next person up to 30 years so that you have your whole plan, succession planning, okay? And then this is very important, because I think that the profession is at a time where we have to reinvent ourselves, the future of the profession. If we don't take into cognizance of this and we start practicing the old way, I think our industry won't survive, okay? Okay, so I've had the benefit of doing many types of projects. You can see I've done residential, I've done places of worship, churches, mosques, exhibitions and convention centers, cinemas, stadiums, educational facilities. This is something which I didn't go after, but I'm just lucky. So I have a spread of knowledge, and more recently, my company has gone into focusing on healthcare and nursing homes, because I think that is one of the future of architecture, where you start preparing for old people and that kind of thing, right? The whole world is getting older, so it's quite a good business to get into, sadly, but what to do, right? I also have served a lot on institution, professional and government bodies, and I want to say this because I think it's important that when you start up, you not only just concentrate on your practice, but to give back. Because when you give back, let me tell you, you can ask Kun Wee, you can ask Kun Pan, and all your senior, you will get back in return, because you will brand yourself, you will profile yourself. The reason why I'm here speaking to you today is because I decided that I want to take part in institution. So it's a good thing, say you profile yourself. So, and I encourage you all to do that as well. I also taught in the university from 2004 to 2008, final year students thesis, and fourth year studio master as well. And currently I'm mentoring all the young architects who are just graduated in Singapore and they want to take the professional practice exam. We mentor them. I'm one of the mentors and I'm on the board as well. Okay, and I took the plunge about year 2000 at the age 40. So you know how old I am now. Okay, to leap into partnership with a former university mate of mine. And I did that because, in a way, I was forced to. I was in a practice called SAA Partnership, which is quite a famous practice in Singapore. And that time, they were like 6 or 7 of us about the same age. And there was a lot of politicking, a lot of backbiting, and a lot of sabotage. Then I asked myself, are these the people that I really want to be with and do business? I don't think so, because the job itself is so difficult. You've got to look after the job. You also got to look about somebody behind trying to stab your back. It's not a very healthy thing. So I decided, okay, I take the plunge. I try. Okay, and I've never looked back. It's been 17 years, and thank God I'm still surviving, right? So that was my push, my kick into going solo, okay? Okay, some of my work in the past, 1985, if you come to 95, if you go to Singapore, this hotel was done by me. This building is no longer there. It's Vivo City is there, but it was quite a famous building that time, World Trade Center. I did the Clarke Quay MRT station also. I did a cinema called the Picture House. These are all in my past practices. And 10 Mile Junction, this is a train depot. This is 1995 to 2000, so that time postmodern was still quite a fad. Then I did Jalan Besar Stadium as well. Then lately, I told you I've done a church, I've done a mosque, I've done this will be central apartment, service apartment, some interior as well. And I've also moved into industrial building. This is a car showroom. And also this food factory in somewhere in Pandan in Singapore. Okay, this I did for the Subaru and the Tanchong Group. And then more recently in 2010-15, we went into medical. Okay, so we did Novena Medical Hospital, one of the premier private hospitals in Singapore. Yishun Community Hospital is a government hospital, but nonetheless in Singapore, the healthcare architecture is quite good. They spend money, and also this medical center. Some residential projects which I did, a school project, and also a fire station. So I'm quite lucky to have a very varied experience in my jobs. Okay. Now, institution work. So while all this is going on, you must do this as well. So these are some of my photos in my institution work. I'm mentoring, giving awards, giving to our first patron at SUTD, and then taking over the mentor from my good friend Ashwin Kumar. And then last year, my firm won the Green Architect Award, so we're quite proud of it. So institution work is very important. Let me stress this to you all. Okay, I think the future still belongs to us because we are 5,000-year-old tradition, right? And I hope we are true architects and not just building stylists. I see a lot of new architecture coming out in Bangkok. They're very stylish, but I'm not sure whether they are true buildings or not. And we actually bear a very heavy responsibility because our job really is to create the built environment. I use the word ordain. Ordain is a very strong word. It's almost like you're almost like a priest, a Jedi Knight. Go out there, believe in the built environment and build it. Okay? For life to be played out. Question is, can the world be without architects? We know the world cannot be without doctors, right? Because then everybody falls sick and all this. But can the world be without architects? Maybe one day the computer programming is so good that you know a bit of... In fact, now if you know a bit of SketchUp, you got a bit of architectural sense, you can start drawing a small building already. But is that your limit as an architect? Is that what it's all about, just drawing pretty pictures? So this is something which really we need to ourselves. Because I think if we don't address this problem, they may not need us anymore. Okay? Also to recognize that in most countries, the profession of architecture is actually protected by statutes. Meaning it is serious enough for the government to want to enact a law of parliament in it. Right? And the reason why they do this is not because they want to protect us, but because the work that we do has a very profound and deep impact on society in general. So anything like that must be controlled by the Acts of Parliament, right? So we are actually empowered to carry out the regulations. So we are quasi-agents of the government, and with that power comes great responsibility. So I think when it's a startup, if we have that kind of mindset in mind, it's very important. Then I think we will succeed. That the work we do is actually very serious. And then for those of you all, I'm not so sure whether you have what we call illegal practices here. I'm sure, yeah. People who are practicing without licenses. I'm sure they are. It happens in every country. They don't want to take the professional exam, but they work, and then they get somebody else to sign off the plans. But I discourage that, okay, because you have to feel the heat of project leadership. This is the only way you can improve your professionalism. If you just keep on drawing, and you get somebody else to take the responsibility, I think you're a coward. You're a professional coward. So you got to stand by your work, stand by your designs, okay? And here I mentioned National Institute and Board. ASA is here. Look at the exhibition. The conference and all the events they are taking part. So I believe that if you engage ASA, and I'm sure you have this young architects department or something which can support you. So I encourage you all to take part in the institute because this is the way you can improve yourself as well. This slide I show actually to students, not so much, but you all were once students, because I think that we owe society big time. This is a campus that is not done by me, but done by DP Architects and I think Ingerhoven, the new SUTT campus. And they really pour billions of dollars, literally billions of dollars into the education, right? So to train architects. So I think in that sense, I'm sure it happens here as well, government support and all this. your parents' money or whatever loans you take. So you owe society big time to give it back. So you always take that mindset. You're not out there only for yourself, but to contribute to society as well. Okay, so practice landscape now. So you need to ask yourself, what kind of architect do you want to be? What is your forte? This famous drawing showing struggling between art and science. This cartoonist architect, Hellman, he draws a lot of nice cartoons. And then you need to understand yourself also, right? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Not everybody can be good at everything, right? And opportunities, how to sniff out opportunities, and threats. Threats are your friends, like your competitors, and also the influence around the world, the digital disruption of technology. In short, I think it's called the SWOT analysis, SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, and threats. I think it's also very important to be true to yourself. Don't try to be somebody which you're not, because then you will really find it out of whack. And this is a long-term career. So in order to last that 30 years or what, you have to like what you do. In some ways, we all suffer for our craft. You heard of that word? Suffer for your craft. That means the payment itself is the job that you do. Of course, we need to survive, but it's good to understand this so that you can bring yourself long-term. So, are you a business type of architect? Are you a technologist? Are you a designer, boutiquist? Or you could be an administrator, orchestrator. Are you a production expert, or are you building typology? I'm residential, I'm resort, I'm hospital, I'm industrial, I'm commercial. Questions that you need to ask yourself when you want to have a startup. And collaboration, I was just speaking to Kun Nui Pet. He collaborates all over the world with architects. So don't be a prima donna. Not everybody can do anything, okay, even if you have the talent, but it's good to collaborate, because when you collaborate, you leverage on each other's expertise, and this is where, as an industry, we can move forward. Okay, there's plenty of room for everybody in our industry, okay, because it's so varied. So I would like to think ourselves as an orchestra conductor. In a way, architects are like orchestra conductor, because the orchestra conductor, he's not a virtuoso in all the instruments, He's not an expert violinist. He's not an expert timpani player or horn player. But he knows the potential of each of these instruments. And he can read a 32-page score simultaneously. He knows what the violin is supposed to play. He knows what the saxophone is supposed to play. He knows what the timpani is supposed to play. It's a bit like us when we coordinate the consultants, right? And so we're coordinating all this, and beyond there's the building contractor, there's a sub-building contractor, and finally we're making this beautiful building or the beautiful piece of music for the client to enjoy. So I've always had this vision here, that you may not know about the instrument, but at least you know what is the potential of the instrument. You know what the engineer is supposed to do. You ask him the right questions. Okay, very long table here, but basically it's just to tell you that in Singapore, there are two different kinds of projects. One is the public sector and one is the private sector. So just very quickly, let's go through. Of course, you know the funds, public sector, they come from taxpayers' money. Public is investor. Okay, this is actually driven by service. This is actually driven by profit. Okay, so I have a hard time trying to understand that, because sometimes, especially when it comes to the financial accountability, you can have the government having hordes of manpower, right? So I sometimes attend a meeting on a government project. I'm one architect, I'm dealing with 10 people down there. Then I ask myself, why is it so unproductive? Why do they need 10 people to deal with me? Then I understand that they are here not really to save money in that sense, but they are here to make sure that the money is spent in an accountable and judicious way. That is their job of a government. Okay, whereas these guys here, they don't care. They can do anything they want just to make the profit. So you must understand, when you're dealing with government and you're doing the private sector, that is the whole grain of the difference between them. Right? And sometimes because of that, they can spend $10 of manpower to save $1 on the project. It sounds silly, right? But they are accountable to the public. They tell the public that your $1 is spent in the best way possible. In order to arrive at a decision, I must spend $10 on manpower to do the research and all this. Right? So these are some of the various forms of practices here. Right? I don't think I need to dwell too much on this, but I want to go into this. Okay, important also to understand the forecast of what's going on in the future. We are fortunate in Singapore, we've got the Department of Statistics to actually tell us that for the next years or so, we're going to have maybe $27 billion worth of work, right? In our peak period, that time in 2014, of course now coming down, it was about 34 billion. So it was a very healthy scenario. Now it's a bit tight. Okay, so you start up your own practice, you need to understand what is the whole pie, what is the final goal, how can you plug into this thing, right? Okay, also in Singapore, our architectural practices are classified, according to various groups varying construction. For example, there are 4 panels of architect, panel 1, panel 2, panel 3, panel 4. So the panel 1 guys like my firm and the bigger firms, will be able to do anything. Then they limit down from 100 million, 80 million down, and so on and so forth. And in order to get into these panels, okay, you have to have all the prerequisites. They count the number of registered architects you have, whether you have a green mark specialist, whether you have a universal design specialist in it and all that. ISO, right? So you have in Singapore, we have to spend resources trying to get ourselves accredited and audited and certified ISO. Then only we get into the panel. I think one day, or maybe now already, it's already happening. It will happen in most societies. Otherwise, how is the government going to make a decision on whether your firm can do the job or not? Right? Of course, you can say, I can do it, but like everything else government does, they need to score and they need to put a value to it. They need to quantify, okay? Pure design competitions are very rare in Singapore, unless they are charitable organizations like who approach the institute and say, let's have a design competition. Then it would be a very pure design competition where we fix the fee and we just select according to the design. And most of the projects here are procured through what we call the price quality evaluation scoring method, okay? So they will give you 70% weightage for your quality. I will elaborate what the quality is later. 10% on productivity. So they even look at your design. And in the past, is your design a productive design? Can it be built simply, efficiently, and safely? Questions which architects seldom ask. And I believe that sooner or later, this culture will come to Thailand and will pervade along the way. Because you cannot help. You've got such a city, you have to use your land very productively. Okay? And then finally, it's 20% on the fees. So, although we don't like to bid for fees, but there's a factor of 20% accounting for the fee that you put in, okay? So what is quality? The 70%. So they look at your design, they look at your innovation, your track records, and the awards that you've won. The number of manpower that you're going to put on the job, okay? What staff credentials? How many registered architects do you have? Do you have a safety expert? Do you have a green mark guy, which is sustainability? Do you have a universal design expert? Do you have a facilities management? So now even to design a building that's easy to maintain. I mean, I looked at some of the buildings in Bangkok. When they were started, they were quite nice and clean, but they're now they're very dirty, and because it's very difficult to maintain. So that even now becomes the responsibility of the architect. Okay, and finally, your referrals and testimony. On your last project, did the client give you a good writing? Okay, so-and-so was a good architect, he gave me good service, and he completed the project on time and within budget. Then productivity, whether you apply productive technical methods in your design, it will be scored, when you submit your plans in Singapore. And the utilization of productivity funds. So the government has set aside, I think, about 400 million worth of funds. So as an architectural practice, you can draw down from that fund. The more you draw down from that fund, the more points you get. So it's quite a good way, okay? So what kind of software do you use? Now the word is Revit and BIM. I believe it's already here, or coming here soon, right? Okay, I'd like to go in now to the different modes of practice. I think you don't have to take the photograph. I can send this PDF, and then you can send it to everybody who is keen. So in Singapore, and I believe in Thailand also, there are few modes of practices. The most common is, of course, the sole proprietor, where you are one person and you have absolute say over your business. Liability, okay, anything goes wrong, they can sue you to your underwear. And even your house, okay, is up for grabs. So you must be cautious of that. because it's a small practice, you don't have to submit any accounts, okay? But whatever it is, I advise you to take on professional insurance, because clients are clients. They will never be friends. When the shit hits the roof, nobody is a friend, okay? Your insurance company will be your friend. Then there's partnership, of course, where 2 or more are up to 20. So partner, I think the ramifications are quite same as sole proprietor, except that you have 2, right? Again, your personal assets are up for grabs, not required to submit audited accounts, but advisable to take professional insurance. Then, of course, you have your limited companies, okay, whether it's private or public listed. Do you all have any public listed practices in Thailand? I don't think so, right? No. Why? I think because for the simple reason, you cannot be just driven by profit motive, right? Architects are professional, we have ethics. So if you're just a public listed company, you will be driven only by the shareholders. Whatever the shareholder says, you have to do it. So that's the reason why architectural practices, and even doctors are not hospitals. Doctors, they cannot go and become public listed, okay? So the company, I think it is probably the same. Your liability is just only with the company assets, okay? So they can sue until your company goes bankrupt, but your house and your underwear, you can keep it. It's no problem, okay? But again, insurance is very important. So there's also this thing called a limited liability partnership. I'm not so sure whether you have it in Thailand, but here it is a partnership, but each partner is just liable for his own jobs only, okay? So it's like it's a hybrid between a company and a what do you call that, limited liability partnership. Okay, so I won't go into details. I'll send out the notes and you can have a look. So bear with me, workshops are quite technical, so it has to be quite technical in that sense. So never practice without a professional indemnity insurance. Do you have this culture here in Thailand? Beginning to, very important, okay. So your insurance can protect you against your contractual obligations, but where the state obligations are concerned, I think insurance will not cover. So it's something which you have to do to comply with the state. In Singapore, the insurance company do not. Like for example, if the building control comes after me because of a certain collapse that kills somebody, I will be responsible. Insurance won't cover. But contractual obligations with the client, they can cover. Okay. So our value, not uncommon to take up to 2 million. To 2 million, professional indemnity insurance will cost you probably about a couple of thousand Singapore dollars a year. So when you start up, set aside some money for this because this is very important. Okay? And be able to afford the excess. Excess means for the first 20,000, you have to pay yourself if you get sued. But beyond 20,000, the insurance company will take it over. So this is important to consider. So you need a bit of have some finances to cover the excess, right? Be upfront, be truthful about your disclosures, and then be very careful of this word, fitness for purpose, because it means that anything goes wrong to the building, you are responsible for it. But we all know not true, right? We only do up to the level of the regulation. If we keep the regulation, we meet the regulation, that's all our obligation is. Okay? For example, if you have a railing, right? If somebody, you railing, the building control says, you need it at 1 meter high. Okay, I do it at 1 meter high. If somebody climbs the railing and jumps down, is it your fault? It's not your fault, right? Because you've designed it according to the requirement. But fitness of purpose says that it is your fault because your railing failed to prevent the person jumping over. So be mindful of that. So are you going to be a specialist or a generalist? Okay, while our basic core expertise is here, we are the lead design consultant, we have to comply with the authority, we have to contract administrate. But from this, you can see it will branch out into various expert fields. For example, those who are working overseas, you are just the design consultant only, right? You authorities, you get the local guy to do it. Large scale projects, 100 million, 500 million, you need somebody just to manage the design only, and this has to be an architectural person. So you could even set up a practice just to do this, And now, with the advent of BIM, BIM itself is a whole discipline. An architect who specializes in BIM, in modeling. Okay, the latest thing to happen now is what we call the collaborative room, where in this room we have a big screen. Okay, I have the engineers here, I have the architect. We have the big computer at the back, and we put it up there. Then everybody talks about coordination of the services and all this. That's what's happening now. The future is like that. So you have to prepare yourself. So even this itself can generate an industry. Then, of course, you have regulatory experts. You may have an architect who looks at high-rise, safety of high-rise buildings. Okay, green mark. And then whatever future specialization they can come aboard. So the pie is very big. Okay, so it is up to you to decide. I think that we are in Singapore, it's moving in this direction, and I think that it will influence the ASEAN region as well. Okay, so we're on to number 5 now. These are our typical practice stages that we have. We have your preliminary service where you talk about the feasibility and your early stages. Then you go into concept, you go into schematic. Finally, you design, develop, then you document, you go for tender, then you contract, administrate, and then finally it is the commissioning and the post-tender to settle the accounts. So I'm showing this because as a young startup, you must pace out your projects. It doesn't mean that you have a lot of projects is good. Because if all the projects are going for tender, can you imagine how many people you need at that particular time? If all your projects are doing the submission. So the best, if you can stage it such that maybe if you have 10 projects, 2 projects complete, and they dovetail and they overlap nicely. Because if everything is happening at the same time, you get what you call a perfect storm. Your ship will sink. Okay? So don't bite off more than you can chew. And don't chew everything at the same time. Pace it out. Pacing of projects is very important for a startup. The cost of running a practice in Singapore, roughly 60% goes to the salaries. 20% goes to the rental, 10% overheads, and it's always good to have reserves for lean times. Okay, so you can use this model. I don't know whether in Thailand it's roughly like that, but in Singapore, so actually if you look at it, it's 2 things. It's the salaries and the rent. These 2 you can manage, but these 2, quite hard to control. Your fee proposal, when you put up a fee proposal, you should contain the basic information. Of course, you name your project and your description. What are the things you need to put in, Location, the site area, how big the area is, what are the requirements, and your scope of service. Are you going to do the whole thing? Are you just going to be a design consultant? Are you just going to look at the fire regulation? Time frame is very important also. Okay, and then the fee quantum, how much you want. After I give you a sample of how to compute. And then the mode of payment. Do you want upfront payment? 10%, 10%, 10%. If you have a long project that stretches 4 years of construction, during that construction, you need to get paid every single month. Otherwise, how are you going to pay salaries? So this is what I mean by mode of payment. Okay, and then of course your service agreement. Does ASA have a standard service agreement for architects? I'm sure, right? Yeah. And some of the developers may not want to use ASA agreement. They may have their own agreement also. So consider the pitfalls and the tribulations for the various standards agreement. Okay, fee computation basis. So what to consider when you charge fees? Okay, look at the project value and the construction cost. The wisdom is that the bigger the project is, the more effort you're going to put in. So a percentage of it, perhaps. Complex? Is it just a simple house? Maybe it's a warehouse. Maybe it's an airport, or even worse, the most complex building, the hospital, because the amount of time that you spend is quite astronomical. Okay, and then it's going to be here. Because when you're in your home country, normally the wisdom is you can charge higher fees, but when you work overseas in a less developed country, you cannot be charging the same fees as what you're having here because your manpower costs are different. So the question is, maybe you want to collaborate with the local architect overseas to say, okay, I'll pay you something, you help me to develop my drawings. So this is the way you can keep down your business costs. Okay. Travel and accommodation. You want business class travel? You want to stay in 5-star hotel? So the best is I normally say that, okay, this is my fee. The travel and accommodation, you tell me, you want me to go 5 times, you pay me 5 times of the fee. Just cover my travel and business accommodation. Time and manpower base, I showed you just now, right? And then the scope of service. How long is the project? Because ours is time charges. What role are you playing? Are you supervising? Are you designing? And then the risk. I was just explaining to Kunmi this morning, I had a project in Vietnam, in Myanmar. And we finished the design. But because of the political changes, that we lost the site because the parliament decided that the site is to be given to the public and not to the private. So I've already spent money completing the design. So it was a risk that I was willing to take. Sometimes it has to be like that. Other costs, for example, you may need certain special software, special training that you send your staff to do the project. Whether you want to do it as a lump sum. Lump sum, clients like it because it tells them, it limits the exposure of the project. Or you want to do a sliding percentage scale, or a lump sum up to a certain point, and then if it's like more than certain, you charge a percentage. It could be a combination of both. Okay, so typically this is how we would work out the fee proposal. You would identify the staff that you need, right? Whether it's the principal, the director, deputy director, senior architect, and all this, even right down to the administrative secretary. Then you need to put in their salaries here, all right? And then how many of each? Then when you do it, this is an Excel chart, so it's simple mathematics. You will know that, for example, if you use a senior architect, his salary, because you got 5 of them, will be, say, 50,000, okay? Then you need to include now, this is your magic figure, the 2.5. Because you've got to cover his bonus there. You've got to cover what we call the Central Provident Fund, the government tax, okay? You've got to cover the paper, the rental, the annual dinner, the incentive trip holiday for your staff. So this can adjust accordingly, how sharp you want your knife to be. So you multiply it, and then you got to decide, okay, this project, I'm only going to allow you 1 day a month to work on it. 1 day a month means 5% of a month, right? Because they are 20, you work 20 days a month roughly. Then after that, you multiply out, you will get your monthly cost, right? Once you monthly cost, then you times by the number of months, right? You will get your overall cost, and then this is what it costs to do the project. You're not even talking about your profit yet. Then you put in your profit. Okay, in this case, I'm showing you a 25% profit. Maybe too high. Lean times, you may bring it down to 15 or 10%. But a simple chart like this, put it up, roughly know, okay, this is what I need to charge the client. Then you go back against the lump sum. So you have it in the back of your head, then you know roughly, I'm going to make money, I'm going to lose money. Then you watch, because if your guy, you told him that you're supposed to just spend, 50% only, but if he's spending 1 month, the whole month on that job, it's a problem. So you have to have this at the back of your mind. Of course, in bigger offices, they got a whole department looking at the timesheets and comparing to see whether the job is losing or making money. It may sound very technical, but it is, okay? So it's not about design, it's about business. I think you will talk about the business management part of it later, right? Okay, the next item, the elements of a successful practice. Systems and standards. Okay, you need to have a project quality plan. I will just elaborate later. Checklist and protocol for every stage of the work. The reason why is that when you have staff, you just tell him, okay, Mr. New Architect, you're going to conduct your first site meeting. This is the agenda. Just follow. So a lot of you all, maybe now you're working in the big practices, you can learn from them and develop your own so that by the time when you come out, you have your Bible already. It's a protocol. And you can come out there and you can start running up and away. Because this is very important. This will save you manpower, right? And this will really help you to improve the efficiency in your office. So you will have to build up your standard details and your specifications, which is part of your data library and your branding, right? Certain architects, they only like to do this kind of steel glass railing, or theirs is a timber rafter. So this is somewhere you can develop and have all these standard details. And really, at the end of the day, unless you're doing a museum or a national theatre, a one-off building, if you're just doing a factory, a commercial, a school, it's just a case of plug and playing, knowing to choose which is the right one, putting it together. That will make your work so much efficient and so much faster. Then, of course, okay, your standard letters of correspondences. You'll be writing tons of letters, so it's good to have standards. Okay, you need to have your project quality plan, which is your principal project particulars, all the thing here. Now, the reason why you need to do all this is because your staff will not be with you forever. They will leave you in 3 months, in 1 year. At least when you have all this tied down, you can just hand it over to the next staff and he will be up and running. So the handover will be very smooth. So protocol, flowchart, systems, and standards. Okay, your organization chart also is very important. Who, the various responsibilities that you have within the establishment. The scheduling and the program, right? You no point having the greatest design and you can't deliver on time. Useless also, right? The design brief to document what are the requirements in terms of adjacencies and all this. And this is also important because if the client happens to change the design brief and you can prove that you have changed the design brief, you have made the building bigger, you have made the building higher, you have changed the use of the building, then this gives you fuel and ammunition to claim for additional fees. So it has a dual purpose. It makes the whole project go faster, and it gives you ammunition, protect yourself for additional service. Okay, we even talk about how to conduct a meeting, your meeting minutes agenda. Some projects, you can have meetings the whole week, but they talk about different things. So you need to have organizational interfaces and arrangements of how to conduct the meetings as well. You need protocol for how to review your designs. Are you going to do a weekly thing? Are you do a monthly thing? Somebody just looking after the fire regulation? Somebody just looking after the environmental regulation? Somebody looking after the planning regulation? How is it all going to be sewn in? Right? And then how do you document and reference your filing and your storage system? Even your drawing numbering system, the filing and the storage. All this has to be ironed out also. Okay? Documents as well. And authorities approval, right? We are always looking at our design, chasing after the meetings, and we forget that the approval will lapse in 6 months' time. And when the approval lapses, we have to resubmit the whole plan again to the authority. And that will cost time and money. So somebody has been tracking this as well. Okay, how do you prepare your tender, contract documents, all your standards got to be worked out. And of course, your site administration procedures. Develop a site manual of what you want your site staff to check. How do you check tiling? How do you check curtain wall? How do you check skirting, electrical wiring? Okay, maybe you tell me that I'm only going to do houses that don't need to be all this. But I can tell you, if you set up all this, it will run in any project. You may use 5% of this for houses and the whole thing for a more complex project, but it's always good to develop this kind of standards. So manpower resource, okay. Basically, in an architectural office, you can say that there are 4 main departments. There's, of course, all this could be done by one person if it's a small office, but the strategy is this: you got to spend time for marketing and to develop your business. Okay, you got to spend time for the design and the technical aspect. Lots of people forget this, research and training, to keep abreast of what are the latest technologies, what are the latest materials to be used. This is where I think you can talk to your suppliers and all this, so that, you see, your designs are only as good as the knowledge that you know. Just like a painter, he's only as good as the colors that he uses, right? So same thing. You need to keep abreast on this. That's why I say research and training is something which a lot of architects leave out. Then, of course, collect money and to run a tight office, administration and finance. Okay? You need to have a strategy to identify great talent and committed staff. Staff who are like-minded. A partnership actually is like a marriage. In fact, I think it's more important than choosing your wife. You ask me. So, because it's your life. So, whether you are like-minded with this person, whether you can gel, you share the same values. Training is very important as well. Okay? And your benefits and your welfare. How do you keep your staff incentive training, rewards, citations, and of course fair wage, your rewards, so that you may want to say that, okay, you're a senior architect, you can take 5% of the profit or something like that. Some profit sharing scheme, you can consider that, because this will help the person to buy into the system of the firm and it will be healthy. Okay, a healthy staff is a healthy office. That's a very simple mandate to follow. Okay, branding and collaterals. Okay, do you want to brand your style and your details? Do you want to say, in this office, we only do details like that? And that happens to a lot of the good architects in Singapore. Like, for example, a firm like SCDA, Chan Soo-Kian, you may have heard of him. One look at his lines, you know this is a Chan Soo-Kian building. He brands himself that way. You want to do that? You can do. Or is yours a case of process and methodology? Healthcare projects, how you talk to the client, how you gather all the information. This is actually an art, how to conduct user group workshops. You could brand yourself that as well, okay? So that in this industry, we know this particular firm has good structure, has good methodology, and very systematic. Okay? Take part in design competitions. Win or lose, never mind. There can only be one winner. There are no second prizes in architecture. But you just take part. Then you can get published and your name will get around, okay? Profile yourself through work and voluntary service on professional institutes and government. I'm living proof that this works, okay? If I didn't step up to become the SIA president, I won't be here standing in front of you. I won't be able to talk to all the government authorities. It's not that you want glory for yourself, but it comes with the territory, okay? You have to go out there. You have to break the mold, even come out of your comfort zone. Like, for example, me, I'm not a natural public speaker. No, because I have to force myself to do it, I do it. Okay, so this will help your profiling, okay? Then you can take part in publications, talks, and seminars as well. Newsletter, website, and your exhibitions. These are ways to profile yourself and to get yourself out there, your name out there. And of course, relationship cultivation with clients, which I find is good for private clients. But in Singapore, relationship is not a good word because you're only good as your last project. It doesn't mean you perform at your last project, the next project, they will just give it to you. They will wipe the slate clean, start the reset button, okay, we start again. Do you know that in Singapore, I can't even buy a cup of coffee for a government official? 50 cents cup of coffee because it's seen as trying to coerce favor. So it's really difficult. I don't know, good and bad. One day that culture may come to Thailand also. Okay. Expansion and succession planning. Size does not mean profitability, okay? Because the bigger stomach you have, the more food you need to put inside. And then when it comes, you need to lose weight. It means you have to cut and retrench staff. It's very sad, okay? To see somebody I have to, although I want to keep you, but I can't, I have to let you go. So don't expand too fast. You have to watch it. Watch your, be lean and trim. Collaboration, very important, because I think that's the buzzword now. The building projects are getting too complex. It cannot be done by just one office only. You have to collaborate. Okay? And then you need to identify also who are the key pillars in the office that share the same values of you. Then work the relationship so that at the end of the day, when you come to 60 years old, you can tell him it's time for you, my friend, to step up and take over. Okay? Very important. So don't be the brand. Okay, you look at Zaha Hadid, she was the brand. She's now dead and gone already. There can never be another Zaha Hadid. So the firm dies with her already. So you can do that if you want to do, but you want to be the brand, it means that it will die with you. You must be able to pass down the knowledge and to carry on. It's almost like a country, actually. Right? The culture, build up the culture. Okay, invest and develop in leadership and management expertise, because this is the key to take the firm forward. And of course, you build, and people who can build client confidence and comfort. There are some people who, just 5 minutes talking with the client, they either give comfort to the client, give confidence, or the client will tell you, no, this guy, he's really rattling me, I can't work with him. So you need to identify people like that. Okay, but of course, not just having a sweet mouth, but a sweet mouth with substance and knowledge as well. A lot of people think that it's just talking in the air, but you have to deliver as well, right? But it's the idea of your, what we call emotional quotient, how you deal with the clients. Okay, so lastly, I'd just like to touch a bit about where are we going, because it's important that you know what's in the future so that you can prepare yourself. I think we are what we call riding the sixth wave of industrialization, where architects has to be now problem solvers. We have to solve the problems, because if we don't solve problems, we have no value to society. We are not just mere building stylists only. Okay? And we're talking about holistic wellness of the built environment. Not just sustainability, but about the aged people. Okay? But about a building that's safe and easy to build. A building that is easy to maintain. It's a holistic quality already. And this movement is already started in Europe. It's called the wellness building. So they judge you by saying that if your building is built there, does it add to the whole community or does it make it worse? It only serves the developer, but it screws up the entire environment down there. Okay? So we have to have that kind of consciousness. So I would say that we become now healers of the built environment. Now let's look what's happening. Okay? Now this is a curve that tells you that we are now here, no? This was from the 1700s. Every 50 years, there's a cycle of technology that pushes the economy. It was industrialization, the age of steam, electricity, mass production. 10 years ago, it was the information communication technology and networks. Now we're into this. Okay, the sixth wave of technology. You Google this, you can find more than one. So if you want to succeed, you need to find ways and do something with it. Waste meaning efficiency. Efficiencies, inefficiencies, okay? So the thinking is that waste equals opportunity. You sell the service, not just the product, okay? And then digital and natural will converge. Bits are global, atoms are local. So it's actually, what they're talking about is digitization. And then if in doubt, look to nature. I think very interesting philosophies to follow for the next 50 years. So again, the waves that we are talking about, this of course done. We are now here in this cycle where we're talking about the intelligent technologies. Okay, and the economies will be driven by environmental technology, biotechnology, nanotechnology, and healthcare. These are predicted. You want to believe? Up to you, but if you Google it, you will find that a lot of the economies are saying this. So we should prepare ourselves for this, okay? The driven and leveraged by digitization, the computing power is going to get more and more, okay, to the extent that I was listening to this BBC program and they're telling me that they're going to develop an app. Doctors have developed an app that can diagnose somebody even better than a doctor. Okay, so the doctors will be left only for serious surgery, but your flu and all this kind of thing, they can do it already. Okay, in India, they have a kind of a mobile phone app. They can actually help detect women's breast cancer. No, instead of going to the clinic, you just scan it over, they know whether you have. Of course, it's superficial. If you need more serious one, you go to them. But the point I'm trying to make is that it is going to affect all of us, the way we work. Okay, so we have to be ready for it. The driverless car, and especially this one, virtual reality and design now, right? You know this Google Glass, you can go in, actually can simulate your building. You will have to ready yourself for this. So you look at what's happening, the last 3 Pritzker Prize winners, okay? This is Alejandro Aravena. Tremendous amount of community and social work, right? Do you see any fancy structures here? I don't. I see very rational and meaningful buildings. 2014, Shigeru Ban, he was given work. He was given the award because of all the humanitarian and crisis work that he's doing. Then you have Wang Shu, very community-based work, recycling, building communities. And then finally, this is, to me, the greatest destiny of what's happening now. They dropped the design and they went for Kengo Kuma. Save half the cost. And this is coming from Japan, one of the most advanced countries in the world. So if they can make a decision like this, what do you think they're saying? Okay, think about that. Okay, so this is our new role. Okay, I mentioned just now, holistic wellness, climatic response, sustainability, construction economics, productivity and buildability, design for safety and universal access, easy to maintain, nuisance-free construction. Not free, minimal nuisance construction. Very important. Because you're building in cities, you do not want to disrupt your neighbor and screw up everybody's lives as well. Okay? The responsible use of technology, deep and meaningful beauty, rigor of truth, rational and logic, evidence-based design. You say you want a curve, right? I will ask you, why is a curve better than a straight line? Can you prove to me? Most architects can't do it. They'll tell you, oh, I do it because I'm a curve man. Right? So we're talking about evidence-based. Okay, so it's happening here in Singapore. We have this kind of Lego where the unit comes complete. Inside, it's already finished with a kitchen, with a toilet, with the carpet, with the tiles. They just stack it up. Okay, and you go to the airport, this building done by Woha. They followed this, but this is not really true because after they did that, then they cladded over. So it was not really, they took away the buildability component. But the point I'm trying to make is happening. It's happening already. We got to start thinking about technologies like this. Okay? And designs that are suited for manufacturing and assembly. The construction sites of the future will be assembly plants. Nothing is built on site. It's only assembled. Everything else is built off site. I bring it to probably only the basement and the foundation, because that one you can't do it. But otherwise, it's just stacking, putting together, fast, clean, efficient. And each of these components will need an architect to be looking into the design. You may not design the whole building, but you design the component. So there's a lot. And you have a very big industry. I mean, I will go to your exhibition. It's fantastic. You make your own wood. You make your own carpets. You make your own metal, even your own mailbox. You are poised for this kind of thing. We can't do it in Singapore because we are too small. You have the opportunity and the mass. And I think this is the way you all should go. Okay, so finally, yes, it is not only just our professional development. We need to collaborate. You can design, manage, and cross-disciplines. By meaning cross-disciplines, all the various things like sustainability, universal design, safety, things like that. Okay, thank you very much. We can have a discussion now.
Uh, จะถามเป็นภาษาไทยก็ได้นะครับแล้วเดี๋ยวผมจะช่วยแปลแล้วช่วยกันแปลนะครับใครมีคำถามอะไรบ้างไหมครับถ้าเผื่อไม่มีนะฮะเดี๋ยวผมเริ่มคำถามแล้วกันนะฮะTheodore, thank you very much for the very informative session that you provide for us. Lots of information, and
yes.
Let me just begin by asking let's say from the very beginning, because a lot of the audience here are young architects starting out in the profession. How much of the information that you provided for us was acquired by the training in order to get the licensing from the board, first of all? Because I know the Singapore training, you have like a benchmark that I know that it's like you want the person who is called the architect to be the team leader, which means that the architect needs to be very knowledgeable in everything that has to do with the profession and with other professionals, not in detail, but like you have to know engineering, you have to know structural, mechanical, electrical, and so on and so forth, in order to be the team leader. So I'm just wondering, your knowledge that you presented now, how much of that was acquired prior to getting your license and that early part of your professional life?
Yeah, I'm afraid that to tell you, I'm a bit embarrassed to tell you that no, these things you do not learn in the universities, and I think that is part of the problem. And it's getting worse, because during our time when we were students, we embraced practice, we were told that what you're learning in school is in the design part is not enough. You must embrace professional practice, you must embrace regulations, And this is something for a young mind, I think nowadays is very difficult to do. They sort of reject that. They just want the sexy part of architecture, but the designing, or the building styling. I wouldn't even call it design, I would call it building styling. Okay? So I learned all this, I think, during my first 10 years, when I was with a firm called SAA Partnership. It's very different now, of course, the firm. But I was fortunate that to do all those projects. So in every different kind of building typology, you will learn a different thing. But we realized that at the Institute, and also at our board of architects. So now, I think ever since I became the president, I was vice president before, we started this thing called an architectural practice course. And this is where we try to plug in the gaps that the university has failed to plug in. So the graduates come out, and a lot of the things that you see here I've taken from those lessons. And it's a 28-week course, and it's very rigorous. They actually go through every single part of professional practice, including now a business management module, which is done by our good friend Ashwin Kumar. We called him to do it. It's the latest module that we added in the hope that, yes, it's not just about building styling, it's about how to manage a practice as well. So, to answer your question, right now, it's still learning on the job, even for the young graduates. But we hope that in time to come, because now it's like the 8th batch of guys who have gone through us already, they will be armed with the knowledge and they will come back to serve the institute and to again propagate this knowledge of professional practice.
ผมคิดว่าสิ่งที่Theodore เขาอธิบายเนี่ยนะค่อนข้างสำคัญโดยเฉพาะในส่วนของสถาปนิกบ้านเราเนี่ยนะครับที่จะต้องรู้เรื่องของการทำ professional practice ที่เป็น business แล้วก็รู้ถึงปัญหาส่วนใหญ่ซึ่งทางสมาคมเองเนี่ยผมคิดว่าสมาคมเนี่ยควรที่จะ organize แล้วก็เริ่ม organize แล้วด้วยนะครับเพราะว่าคุณอนุชาผมก็ได้ไปเรียนกับคุณอนุชานะฮะผมก็ไม่ได้รู้สิ่งเหล่านี้ทั้งหลายเนี่ยนะครับแล้วก็เราก็รู้ว่าปัญหาเนี่ยมันมีจริงแล้วถ้าเผื่อสถาปนิกไม่ทราบเนี่ยเราสักพักหนึ่งเราเบื่อทำไม่ไหวแล้วเปลี่ยนอาชีพดีกว่าไปเปิดร้านอาหารบ้างไปทำอะไรบ้างนู่นนี่นั่นทำเงินได้เยอะกว่าที่ซ้ำไปนะครับซึ่งมันไม่ใช่ข้อดีของอาชีพเราเลยนะครับเพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยผมคิดว่าสิ่งที่สิงคโปร์ก็ได้เริ่มทำเนี่ยนะครับแล้วก็เริ่มทำเป็นเรื่องเป็นราวเนี่ยผมว่าอันนี้สำคัญนะฮะแล้วก็ทางสมาคมเองเนี่ยผมคิดว่าควรที่จะทำอะไรในลักษณะแบบที่ว่านี้นะครับ so your mentoring that you mentioned in your presentation that you are now a mentor how much of that you feel is very valuable to, say, the young architects coming into the profession?
I think it's very valuable. The mentoring system in Singapore is a requirement, okay? So for a young architectural graduate, he has to work for 24 months constantly in a project in Singapore attached to an architectural practice. And during these 24 months, there is a logbook for him to fill up, and he must ensure that he completes all the various stages of the practice. And you as a mentor, every 3 months you will have to review his work and tell him what's missing, what he needs to beef up on. But here's the thing, you're mentoring, you're not teaching, you know. So the thing is that I always encourage, I tell the students these are the kind of practice that you need to take over. But you almost like got to write a diary, okay, of the events that took place. And not just only record down, not just data, but to analyze it. For example, building regulation, you ask yourself, why is the fire distance 60 meters, okay? And of course, the reason we know is because you want the person to escape in 1 minute, it takes about 1 meter, 60 steps, that's why it's 60 meters. And that's the truth, you know? So that the idea is not to encourage them not just to look at the regulation, but is to go beyond the regulation and say, why is the regulation like that? Because only when you understand the rationale and the justification for the methods and the processes, then you can improve it and not just follow it blindly, okay? So the mentoring process is very important. I don't know whether you have such a thing in ASA. Yeah, so and I think you should do it, even if it's not a requirement, or maybe even make it a requirement. Tell your board, that yes, all young architects have to come in with this very structured mentoring process. And we at SIA will be more than willing to share with you the logbook and the formats and all this. It's just that you need, it takes time. You need to volunteer. People got to volunteer and maybe meet the students or the candidates once in 3 months to get a close rapport to advise them.
Yes, and this is another thing that I find that we should change here in Thailand, is the fact that we have exam, but the exam is only for a first stage of professional licensing, which is not a full license. And I think the whole process of trying to get an exam for the full license is more important than to get an exam for a minor license. It doesn't make sense to me. And I think you, SIA, and the board of Singapore, as well as AIA and NCARB, have done a very thorough analysis of what it takes to be a professional architect. And I think, to me, that is very important. And I like to see this happen in Thailand, that ACT, the Architects Council of Thailand, change their mindset and revise the way the licensing is done. And I think that it could be in collaboration with ASA doing training program, and then instituting what you mentioned about mentoring, because I think the mentorship is an important aspect. So yes, definitely I like to see the whole way of providing licenses for architects in Thailand be changed, and I'm a firm believer in that. มีคำถามอะไรไหมครับมีคำถามอยากจะถามอะไรเกี่ยวกับสิงคโปร์หรืออยากจะคุยเรื่องของปัญหาของประเทศไทยการ practice ในประเทศไทยหรืออยากจะทราบอะไรมีอะไรไหมครับ
In Singapore, SIA is just like ASA. We are a non-government organization. We are what we say a think tank, a learned society. So we hold the knowledge of the practice, but we are not empowered to issue the license. But however, ours is a small country. Half of the board members belong to SIA. So we are serving on SIA and we are serving on the board. So there's synergy there. But the authority comes from the board. But we are we work closely together. Yes. The mentoring is mandatory because the board says that in order for you to sit for the exam, you must get a mentor, and the mentors will come from SIA. So that's the way it works. Yeah. But you have a lot of practicing architects as well. So here's the strange thing about mentoring. When you mentor, it's not only the students that learn, you also will learn. Because you will test your knowledge, and you will have to keep yourself abreast of the latest technologies and the latest regulations and all this. Because how are you going to mentor a person when you yourself are not good? So in a way, it works. It's a two-way cutting-edge sword, see?
Yeah, I want to kind of touch upon that a little bit, because what Kun Noi mentioned is something I never thought about before. Because you have, let's say, many young architects who are coming into the profession who want to have a mentor, for instance. And there are only a number of firms, correct? Therefore, the mentor is, let's say if I'm a young architect and I come to your firm to work and you become my mentor, but I have 8 of my friends who are maybe not working yet, how would they get the mentorship?
Okay, the mentor does not necessarily have to come from your firm, from the firm that you're working in. In fact, it's encouraged not to, so that there's an independent opinion checking on the work that you do. Because normally, if the mentor comes from your firm, there's a conflict of interest, so to speak. So the mentor comes from another firm.
So the mentor is like a training program outside of the practice itself.
Yes, you're
okay.
right. Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't aware of that. I was under
Yeah.
the impression that if somebody works in my office and I become the mentor, hey, I can provide, whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You would
Sorry.
be what you call the supervisor, right? Of course, the day-to-day. But the mentoring has to come from another practice. And it's tough. I mean, I kid you not, especially for the students, because in Singapore, the architects work like crazy. In the bigger practices, well, I don't believe in that, but in the bigger practices, they go up daily up to 11 o'clock, sometimes even daily, this is daily. And then after that, over and above, they've got to do this thing. So sometimes they take more than 2 years. They take 3 years, even 4 years. But then in the life of an architect, 5 years is nothing. Some of my projects last 6 years, So I always tell them, don't be discouraged. You stay the course. Yeah. So it doesn't mean that straight away 2 years you can take the exam. No, you take your time,
The mentoring, if I just can touch upon that a little bit further, is it like a coursework that is done somewhere and you get 10 students or 10 candidates or 20 candidates, whatever, come and listen to you or what?
No, basically it can be done online or you can be doing one-to-one. So every 3 months, the student will fill up his experiences for that 3 months according to the various stages of the work. Okay? Then you as a mentor will review it and tell him, I think this observation is wrong, this observation is right, you need to do this, blah, blah, blah. You could do it online also if you want, because now the internet is so fluid. Yeah? And you can even meet him personally. It's up to you. They have the flexibility there, because we understand that as the mentor, you also are a working person, and the student also is another working person, right? So that's the way it's done. It's a structured form, and you fill up. It's almost like a diary, right? You tell the story of the project, and then the mentor is the editor of that diary. If you like, I can put it that way.
Yeah, that's very good to know, because I think in Thailand we need to really relook at the professional practice and the training program for the profession. So I mean, that could be another topic in itself that we could set up and discuss with ACT and see what we can do. มีคำถามอะไรไหมครับครับเชิญเลยครับ
Yes, our firm, we employ Chinese, we employ Indonesians, we have some Filipinos. We used to have a Thai national, but I think she came back already because your economy is so good, she doesn't need to work in Singapore. Yeah, so we do that, but they are depending on the university. You see, Singapore is, I suppose you are asking me, will they have a chance to be registered as an architect in Singapore? Okay, usually if one were to hire an architect, okay, it depends. If you need somebody just to develop the design or just to do the technical drawings, it's a different kind of architect that you employ, right? But maybe if you're doing a resort and you want somebody who's a resort specialist, then you may also invite these people. And I think you guys are quite good in resorts, you guys and the Filipinos, right? No, sorry, the Malaysians and the Filipinos, they're quite, Indonesians, they're quite good at resort architects. So it could be in that way also, right? Or it could be just as a technical person, right? Yeah. But the thing I just want to add, that in Singapore, we're very open, It is not a birthright. You don't have to be a Singapore citizen to be a registered architect in Singapore. As long as you can prove to the board that your design education meets the requirement, they will clear you and you can sit for the exam, which is not the case in the Philippines and Indonesia. I think also in Thailand, right? Still not the case.
Yeah, you have to be a Thai national.
You have to be a Thai national.
Yeah,
so
we're proud of that. We're proud,
We're very open in that way. So we have cleared some Thai nationals. I've cleared some Thai nationals. I'm on that panel that actually reviews the design as well. I've cleared lots of Malaysians. So, and many of them have become registered architects and practicing in Singapore as well. Yeah.
I think her next question is that, do you have a job opening she wants to apply? She wants to be a resort expert in your office.
You know what? I would love to employ, all of you all, because from the 90s to 2005, I would say that 90% of architectural staff actually came from Philippines, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia. And because of the perceived social upheaval, the government has cut down the visas already. So now we have a quota system where I can only employ a foreign architect if I employ 7 locals. So it's a 7-to-1 ratio. And they're very strict with that now, unfortunately. Even though we know that, yes, there's still a lot of work to be done in Singapore, even though we're still in a down period, but we still need the help, you see. So it is not a case that we do not want to employ, but the law doesn't permit me to. And a lot of our offices now, they are setting up satellite offices. Like myself, our company has an office in the Philippines. So those guys who worked in my office before and they couldn't get their permits renewed, we put them over the other side and they set up an office down there. And nowadays with the communication, it's so easy. And I believe I think Ong and Ong has an office here, right? In Thailand.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, so this is the way the world is moving now,
Yes.
with communications. It's so fluid, yeah.
And speaking of the fluidity, what's your opinion on ASEAN architects and the fluidness of that?
Now, this was the same question that was put to me. I was just at Philippines last week speaking about something else, also about professional practice, touched a bit about the future of the practice. I think you cannot get away with it. That, if you ask me, is the nature of the world. Meaning to say that the businesses and the architects from the more developed economies will be going to the developing economies to do business. My friend here, he's in Africa. He's in where? Bhutan and all this. So it's happening. Do the Bhutanese architects like it? Do the African architects like it? I'm sure they don't like you. But that is the nature. And that's the nature of the thing. But you see, it's an opportunity to learn. There will be knowledge transfer, there will be technology transfer. You will up your ante. 20 years ago, John Portman came to Singapore. IMP came to Singapore. Paul Rudolph also came to Singapore. Kenzo Tange came to Singapore. They made their mark. And we all were very angry also that time. I was much younger. I was not influential. I was just a young boy that time. But the point is, 20 years ahead, we learn so much. We move on. You look at the Chinese architects there. 20 years ago, we were there also. We were showing them all the tricks of the trade and all this. But they don't need you now because they are so fast. They learn so well. And they even got a Pritzker Prize winner. We don't have a Pritzker Prize winner. You see? So you can't help that. Don't beat the tide. Just flow with the nature and try to capitalize in and get your knowledge base from it. Don't be afraid of it.
And you also touched upon the trend. You talked about trend in architecture, that you think it's going to move towards kind of the sustainability, the green, and so on. And then the last slide, which you showed a comparison between Kengo Kuma's Olympic Stadium versus Zaha Hadid Stadium. Do you think that the stylistic architecture in the near future will change as you indicated there? Or the stylistic architecture will continue? What's your opinion?
I think it's not so much of a style, but this word called evidence-based. Very simply, like I said, if you want to do a curved building, a building like Zaha Hadid, then I as the developer will ask you, can you prove to me that it is a better building, and in what way? Other than just being different. Different doesn't mean better, because we're not just talking about a fashion designer where you don't like the jacket, you throw away. You're going to spend billions of dollars in this, It's going to impact the environment. So I don't think we can make frivolous decisions like that. The time to brand your building and all this kind of thing, like I hear them say Dubai was last time architect's playground, right? They were doing all sorts of crazy things down there. I think that time is over. You look at China also, I think President Xi Jinping has already mandated no more of this so-called grandiose, iconic architecture. Right? They are difficult to maintain. Have you all gone to see the Bird's Nest, Herzog de Meuron? And even that water cube, I think is very badly maintained. And it's not that it's badly maintained, it's expensive to maintain. Okay? So these are questions which we need to think about, because buildings are one of the greatest consumers of resources in the world, and they actually shape the environment that we build in, right? So it's not just the developer to make his quick profit and just don't care about how's they impacting the society. This is where we have to be the conscience of the industry, I think. So that is my take on it anyway. And I think I'm not far wrong, right? Going by what's been happening. Okay.
So, upon that subject of sustainability, what is your opinion of, say, a high-rise building, and for the name of sustainability, put planting on it? Does that truly sustain?
We have a term for it. It's called greenwashing, right? A building with plants doesn't make it look green. It's not about greening. So it depends on how it's done and how it is maintained. Again, we have this thing in Singapore called the green plot ratio. No? So you start with a plot ratio of 1, right? And then because it's high-rise gardens, right, not on vertical but on horizontal, you end up with more green area than the original site. So the green plot ratio becomes 2, 2.5 or 3. So I think in that sense it helps, and there's evidence for that. You know why? It reduces the heat island effect, right? There is a cooling effect. The temperature doesn't raise so much. So there is evidence based for that. So it's really not about just the look of it, okay? Maybe the look could be flamboyant, but what I'm calling for is that please justify why we need to go that extra mile, How does it come back to me? Monetarily, energy saving, easy to maintain, safety. It's time to look at these very fundamental aspects to solve problems rather than to create problems. Because otherwise, we will just be sidelined, And as architects become a luxury good, you become like the Gucci bag or the Prada bag. You don't become the utilitarian bag which you use every day. I think we owe it to look at and for me, there's beauty in utility. I mean, I always tell this to people, you look at the sports car, you look at the Ferrari, right? It's beautiful, But every curve and every decision on that car is justified, okay? It's about the airflow, it's about the weight. Okay, look at the way the German designers design car. So automobiles are something, and then over time, as they go along, they develop a life and a culture of their own, right? Compare it to the huge Cadillacs, the 6-liter guzzlers of Falcons and all that, right? So if we take the kind of attitude to architectural design, where every line is justified, every decision that we take, I think we'll put a lot more meaning and importance and credibility to our profession.
Yeah, I think what you touched upon is a very good point. The evidence-based accountability of the design, and I'm glad you pointed that out, because I see a lot of times, high-rise buildings, and then you just cover it with green, and they say this is green and sustainable. And
greenwashing,
yeah,
call it greenwashing.
Right. Okay, that's a very good thing to know. Now มีคำถามอะไรอีกไหมครับมีใครอยากจะถามประเด็นไหนตรงไหนอะไรยังไง I think we have until noon, or เรามีเวลาถึงกี่ noon เที่ยงใช่ไหม Okay, so maybe the last question. Anyone with a last question? Yes, ครับ
what is the steps to do
she's too young to be thinking of such with this kind of planning. I mean, you're too young. Yeah.
I mean, John Lennon, Paul McCartney, anybody knows them? Great partnership, great partnership. Not necessarily the best of friends, but great partnership because they have certain value system that together. So, is there a way to identify it? I think there's no formula to do it. Yeah. Okay, so if you identify, what I would do is that I would give them more responsibility. Maybe today I would say, sometimes I'll purposely say, I'm not coming for the meeting, you're on your own. Then test them out, slowly pushing up the responsibility. And then it's a risk because he may botch up the thing. Or I say, okay, today I'm not going to make the presentation. You present to me when it's okay, you present. So when you're up there talking, it's a different ball game already. He has to think on his feet. He has to craft his words. He has to be politically correct. So these are some of the things which you can do. But the first thing is to identify. And I think just pull him aside or the person tell him, hey, I think, there's a potential here. How do you see yourself in the firm? Right? And like in my office, I think we have successfully groomed 2 guys already. They've stuck to us. They've stuck to us even right through the bad days and the good days. In the bad days, of course, there were salary cuts and things like that. But when the good days came, we rewarded them, We gave them very generous bonuses, and they begin to see the value. And I see this person now slowly moving up and now chairing the management meetings in our office. So it's a slow burn. But it is good to start somewhere, identify them. And you have to slowly release the trust, right? You got children? It's the same thing, right?
In Singapore and the professional development in Singapore, do you have this thing called management buyout if you want to exit? If you are, say, head of the firm and you want to kind of exit?
Yeah, that usually is reserved for or is practiced, I would say reserved. It's practiced in the larger practices. Like I know that there are some practices that say when the director each reaches 65, he must retire or he must sell off his shares. So there are things that happen. So this is like a forced succession. Okay, but here I'm talking about where it's not a so-called compulsory recession or forced retirement, where you decide that I want to select the person, right? So there is this practice. Well, you see, we are a small country, and in Singapore, much as you see all these great things happening here, the laws or the government does not really support small and medium enterprises. Because they don't like to say it, but I'm in Thailand, I can say it. For them, all they need is a few big ships, 6 or 7. The Sabana, the CPGs, the HDBs, all the huge. And they're usually all quasi-owned by the government, And these 6 big ships will bring Singapore through. If the smaller boats and the medium vessels, they sink, I'm sorry, too bad, never mind, as long as Singapore is afloat. So we have this problem in Singapore, and we know that, architectural practice, it is the nature of practices to splinter into smaller ones. And it's actually the best ideas, the great creative ideas that come from the smaller firms rather than the big firms. The big firms may have the muscle and the manpower to execute and deliver, but the genesis of the beautiful ideas actually come from the smaller firms. Okay, so we have that problem, and of late there've been a lot of these big boys trying to buy up the smaller boys. So it's been happening. So the question is, you as the director, do you want to sell it out? But for us, we have decided not to, because we think that our ship is still on the upswing and we have a group of guys ready to come in and step in. So we have resisted. We have been approached by many firms, including some of my friends as well. I don't care to mention, but it's happening. Yeah.
Yes, I think we need to come to an end. I'd like to thank Mr. Theodore Chan for a very informative session for this morning. And what I'd like to do is, if we
Yes,
can get...
I'll PDF the file and I'll give it to Kun Nui.
Right, and then we
can distribute
to
whoever you want.
Right, so that everyone will have this information on hand. In this afternoon session, we also have a very good session with Kun Anucha and Dr. Pon to talk about the business management of architect office. So please join us for the afternoon session. And with that, Theodore, thank you very much, and I appreciate your help. He's a very good friend of ASA. Thank you. โอเคครับขอบคุณนะครับเอามีของลืมไป We have a little token of appreciation. It's the ASA T-shirt, I'm sure. Thank you very much, Theodore, and wear it well.